Hey guys, it's Nate here. I'm at CrossFit Total Control, and I'm just going to go over a little bit and explain a little bit about the thought process for the next few weeks of programming. I've been helping Russell for a little bit with writing some of the program, and we're going to try something a little bit different for some of our strength work over the next few weeks, and I'm going to explain a little bit of the rationale and the reasoning behind it, and hopefully you guys um, can take a lot from it, from the reasons behind it, and hopefully we get some good gains in the short term, and more importantly, gains in the long term as well. So one of the things that you see with a lot of athletes that have been in CrossFit or any sport for a long time is their ability to kind of listen to their body as they train. So if you've ever heard Russell talk about his, he either says 60 or 70% rule, most of the time he's spending at that 60 or 70% intensity, and then just every once in a while he'll go really hard in a workout. And I think for someone that's been doing CrossFit for as long as he has, or someone that's been doing it for 10 plus years, um, still being able to make progress is pretty impressive. So I think that's one of the takeaways, is that he's learned how to listen to his body, and it comes with time and with experience. But also, the earlier I think we can get you guys to understand how that process works and what that actually means, the easier, or the earlier you can implement that in your own training, the more success you'll have in the long run. So when we're talking about a traditional strength program, or something like a Windler program, or a 5x5 squat program, or anything like that, you have prescribed weights based on percentages of your 1 rep max. So in a vacuum, and if you don't have any outside input into the weight you should be putting on the bar, like a coach, and you're training by yourself, these programs work very, very well. But they're a little bit limited in their utility, because your 1 rep maximum is just a snapshot of what you were able to do for 1 rep on that given day. So as all of you guys know, some days you're going to come into the gym and you feel great, and some days you come into the gym and you feel like absolute trash. So trying to use a 1 rep max number to do percentages based off of that 1 rep max number that you did on a bad day is going to inherently put the weight on the bar too low, so you're not going to get a good training effect, because you didn't do as much as you should have or you could have. And if you use a 1 rep max that was based on a day where you took a bunch of pre-workout, you slept 10 hours the night before, your diet was dialed in and checked in, then you're obviously going to have a bad time. Everybody knows that feeling when you come in and you look at the sheet, your squat sheet, and you kind of you shake your head and say, "Man, there's no way this is happening." And then we kind of blindly follow the sheet, because that's what's written on there, and we think that it's a failure if we don't hit those numbers on the sheet. So rather than getting frustrated because we can't hit the numbers that it says we should hit, we should learn how to use a little bit of what they call auto regulation. So that means basically going up or down in your weight based on how you're doing, how the bar is moving, and how you're feeling that day. So it's one of those things that takes a long time. It's a skill that takes a long time to develop, and that's why someone that's been in a sport for a long time does a little more of that sort of more intuitive training, or listening to your body. So we're going to transition in the short term, and hopefully maybe in the long term as well, into a more auto-regulated strength program. So that is going to require a little more of us as coaches to help you guys decide what the appropriate weight to put on the bar is, because the goal in any given training session is to put the right weight on the bar to get the right training effect, not to put some arbitrary percentage of a 1 rep maximum that maybe it's 4 months old, which there's an expiration date on all your lifts, and maybe it was maybe it was on a good day or a bad day. So for this week, we've got Wednesday, we've got a technical max, so working up to a technical max in the 3 strict press plus push press plus jerk. So there we just got some technique work. Again, that's when we say work up to a max for the day, that's kind of like auto regulation. So there's no percentage attached to that. It's just going to be do what you can. You might be working on technique, and then you might also be going up to a heavy single or a heavy set of 9 repetitions for that exercise. Then some accessory work on the Z press, and then a little 10-minute AMRAP of push jerks and pull-ups. Okay, then Thursday is deadlift. So this is so let's see. So we'll click on this right here. Okay, so this is deadlift up to a heavy single. So a heavy single deadlift, as far as there will be a percentage guideline, and that's just a rough outline of a range of where you could be. So if you're used to training off percentages, that gives you a target, something to shoot for. So you're going to work up to something relatively heavy for 1. Okay, this should be something with good form and good technique, and that generally puts us at about 85 to 92%. So not to get too in the weeds here, but it's going to be something that's about an 8 RPE, which RPE basically equates to reps left in the tank. So you should be able to do that weight for about 3 reps. Okay, so because you're only doing it for 1, though, it's going to be inherently less fatiguing. So if I put on 90% of my max on the bar and warm up to it and do it for 1 rep, it's not very fatiguing because it's not maximal. The closer you are to a max set, whether it's a max set of 20, a max set of 5, or a max set of 1, it's inherently much more fatiguing. So I would equate it to, if you're able to run a 5-minute mile and you run that, then that's your PR, and you run that 5-minute mile, it's incredibly taxing. If you take 20% off of that or 10% off that, run a 5:30 or a 6-minute mile, it's inherently less fatiguing. So you'll probably be able to do that. You could probably do that again, on maybe 5-10 minutes rest, and you're not going to be that wrecked the next day. So it probably allows you to do it with a little bit better form and technique. And like I said, it's inherently less fatiguing. So we're going to work up to that single rep. And again, a lot of that's going to be coach's eye, seeing how some people will underestimate a little bit and end up sandbagging. So and that's okay. That's where the coaches are there to say, hey, that looked a little bit too light. That looked more like a warm up. So let's put a little more weight on the bar. Then after that, we're going to take 20% off of that daily max and then do our volume sets there. So volume meaning sets times reps. So 5 times 5 is 25 reps of volume. So there we're building muscle, we're building work capacity, which is the ability to do more work. And because we're basing that off of 20% less than our maximal for that day, we're using a much more appropriate load because we're not using something that's a number that's from the past. So we're using something from that day. Okay, so that's the deadlift for that day. Then some ab accessory work. Let's go into the next week after that, and then we have the same sort of concept on Wednesday. Where we're doing a 2-count pause bench press. So, one thing I've kind of noticed is a lot of you, when the weight gets heavier in the bench press, we either avoid the chest or we kind of bounce the bar off the chest. So the 2-count pause forces you to go all the way down to the chest, make sure we're not bouncing. And then again, same thing. We're going to work up to a heavy single in the 2-count pause. Let's see, should be heavy but not maximal. Again, we're in that same sort of percentage range, and that's based on that movement. So we're not using our 1-rep max all-time bench press for a touch and go on this. We're using a weight we can do for that day with these modifiers, 2 count and a pause. So then we'll do our volume work underneath that. Okay. let's see, what else have we got here? So we've got some heavy single in the floating snatch and overhead squat. So that's a technical max on Friday. So getting more into the Olympic lifts. And then we're doing back squats on Monday. Same thing. We're doing a back squat pause, working up to that heavy single. And then our back offsets are 20% less than that. So we're going into shoulder press and bench press on different days and different weeks, but that'll allow us to push the shoulder press probably a little bit more because we're not bench pressing right before it. So we're doing some bench press accessory work on shoulder press day, so we might be able to get a little more out of this close grip bench on that day as well because our chest isn't quite as fatigued. And then we're introducing a little more running now too. So summer's coming to an end. So before it starts getting cold, we want to kind of up our running capacity. It's not a whole lot. It's not like we're running 5Ks or anything like that. But we got a mile and a half on Tuesday, and then the same thing, a mile and a half on Friday here as well. So running is something that when we joined CrossFit, it's like we joined CrossFit because you don't want to run anymore, but running is pretty functional, and you don't have to run all day. You don't have to put in 20, 30 miles a week to get the benefits of it, but we should probably not avoid it altogether. So hopefully that was at least a little bit informative for the next few weeks. Hopefully you guys like this kind of new approach. We're just kind of using the best evidence we have of how to make progress over the long term, because really if we go up to another thing that I kind of neglected to mention. So everybody wants to see their numbers on the bar go up, so their 1 rep max go up. So if we do programs where we shy away from heavy singles, like we do a bunch of reps, sometimes those don't carry over quite as well into the 1 rep max, just because they're so far away in specificity from that 1 rep. So this heavy single before we do our volume work allows us to train the skill of lifting heavy and still get all the benefits of the more voluminous sets and reps. So and because we're going up to the heavy single first, we're less fatigued. We can do that heavier rep with better form and technique. And again, we're practicing that skill of lifting heavy. So if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me on at the gym, or you can send me a message or leave a comment on this video. But I hope you guys have a great day and have a great training week. See you at the gym.